Okay, so for homeostasis feedback loops, the main thing to realize, we have set point. So set point is normal. And if the body is moving away from set point, it is moving in a positive direction. Think about it mathematically. Think about it like a graph. It's moving positively. So this would be away from set point is positive feedback. If it is moving back to set point, it's moving in the negative direction on the graph. So this would be negative feedback. Okay, so now let's work it through in a couple of loops. So in a negative feedback loop, we're going to start at set point. Then there's going to be some sort of stimulus. So remember, a stimulus is a change. So if you want to make a flashcard, if you're making flashcards, a stimulus is a change we must respond to, right? So a stimulus, a change happens that is sensed by the receptor. So going back, this is another vocab term. So the receptor is the sensor that detects the change. And keep in mind, this stimulus, this change that we respond to, this can be an external stimulus, but it can also be an internal stimulus. Blood pressure, pH, blood sugar levels. So this can be external or internal. Your receptor that senses it, this could be your eyes, your ears, but it could also be some of your baroreceptors that are in your arteries, your blood vessels, things like that. So the receptor senses a stimulus. It's going to send an alert to the control center. So if we're going to the control center, we're going afferently, and it's going to alert the control center that something has changed and we need to respond to it. So that's afferent. That's usually going to be a nerve. It's going to be the nerve running to the control center. So your control center, which can be your brain. There's a couple situations where it's not the brain. Then the control center is going to decide what to do, and it's going to send directions to do the effect efferently. So it's going to send it efferently. Maybe it's going to send it on a nerve. Maybe this is a nerve. Maybe it's sending a hormone. That would be like sending it on Wi-Fi, right? A nerve would be hardwired, and hormone would be Wi-Fi. Efferently to an effector. So an effector, it's another little vocab word. The effector is what takes the action in response to the change. And it's usually a muscle, a gland, or an organ. The effector is then going to take the action to do some sort of effect that returns it back to set point. If it goes back to set point, that is a negative feedback. So this would be negative feedback because it's returning back to set point. Negative feedback. Okay. Notice I'm going to do a positive feedback loop. I want you to see the difference because there's not a lot of difference. So it still starts with a set point. There's some sort of stimulus, a change that is sensed by a receptor that sends a signal afferently to the control center. Still looks the same, doesn't it? Which sends the directions out efferently to the effector. And here's the difference. Instead of the effector bringing it back to set point, it's going to take it farther from set point. So it's going to take the effect away from set point. This is a positive feedback loop because it's moving in the positive direction. All right, so really quickly, let's do an example of a negative feedback loop. Let's talk about an increase in blood pressure. So let's identify all the parts. So let's identify stimulus receptor, afferent control center, etc. All right, so let's say we have an increase in blood pressure. That's going to be our stimulus. So our stimulus is going to be an increase in blood pressure. It's going to be sensed by baroreceptors in our arteries, right? So this is going to be, the receptor will be our baroreceptors in our blood vessels, we'll say in the artery. It's going to send the signal afferently, so it's going to be the nerve from the blood vessels to the brain. So this will be the nerve from the receptor, from the artery, to the control center. The control center in this case is the brain. It's the medulla oblongata, but we'll just say the brain. The brain is going to figure out what to do, and it's going to send the instructions out efferently. So that's going to be on a, it's actually a hormone. So it's going to send a hormone out. So it's going to be a hormone from the brain to the heart. The effector is going to be the muscles of the heart. So the effector is going to be the heart, and the effect is going to be to lower the heart rate, and the lower heart rate brings us back to set point. It lowers the blood pressure back to set point. So that's how you can fit them in. A positive feedback would be something like childbirth, breast milk production, and blood clotting. So those are the three things you need to look for positive feedback.